Hello and welcome to our online confirmation series, A Journey from Death to New Life in Christ. This is module 1.1, Human Nature. Are human beings essentially good or evil? First, we'll begin with a few words about this confirmation series. It's a confirmation series that will be held in 24 parts that examines a life of faith through the perspective of Martin Luther's Small Catechism. Of these 24 sections, they'll be divided into 6 modules that will examine the respective parts of the Catechism: the Ten Commandments, the Apostles' Creed, the Lord's Prayer, Holy Baptism, Holy Communion, and Confession and Forgiveness. Today, we'll begin by looking at the Ten Commandments, and we'll be doing a little pre-work. First, I'll say that Luther was moved to compose the Small Catechism for a few reasons. First, he had this belief that didn't really work out as well as he thought it might, that if he were to implement the freedom of the Christian and to allow congregations and individuals to have a sense of freedom in their life, they might use that to further grow in faith. That actually worked out as a bit of a mixed blessing. In fact, at one point during his career, he even does a visitation of congregations and comes back a little crestfallen and complaining that now that the freedom of the gospel has been implemented, the people have actually confused this liberation with license. So, the Small Catechism is written initially as a corrective. There's a second important and very humanizing reason why the Small Catechism was written. It was written at a time in Luther's life when he had a small son named Hans who was running around the house, peeing in the corner, and asking him questions all the time. The question of a toddler. Was ist das? What is this? A question that you will see portrayed in the Small Catechism and repeat it over and over. So Luther sought to write this simple explanation of faith in a manner that was written expressly so that his own toddler son, Hans, could understand it. Third, Luther wrote the Small Catechism in a way that takes a person of faith through a journey from death to new life. It begins with the Ten Commandments for a reason. The Ten Commandments stand in this understanding of the faith as a conviction of the law, and then it takes us through the saving work of the Holy Trinity and concludes with the gifts of grace: prayer, baptism, communion, and forgiveness. This is all part of Luther's understanding that each day a person of faith dies to sin and is raised or resurrected to new life by our remembrance of our baptism. So during the course of these 6 modules and 24 parts, we will take a resurrection journey. We're also going to go a little deeper than what Martin Luther wrote to his son Hans in the Small Catechism. And we're going to ask some abiding and existential questions about life and faith. Today we begin our discussion with the Ten Commandments by discussing an ancient question. Are human beings essentially good or evil? So we're going to back up and visit a little bit of Western philosophy. The ancient classical school of Athens was known for producing 3 great philosophers. You've probably heard of them because they formed the basis of Western thought. There was Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. They wrestled with truth, with a capital T, and what it meant to live a good life, or eudaimonia, as they would say. At one point in these Platonic dialogues, Plato is arguing with Glaucon and Adeimantus, his brother, about justice and injustice. Glaucon, who was his opponent in this argument, he says that Plato is really off base because human beings are at our core unjust and selfish. Glaucon says that human beings don't do good things for goodness sake. They do good things to get something better, say, like a good reputation of being a just person. And this is how the argument unfolds. They agree that there are 3 forms of good. There is an intrinsic good, a good that is good in and of itself, good for goodness sake. There are, on the other side, instrumental goods. That is, something good that is done in order to gain another good, say like healing someone or helping someone so that your reputation might grow. And then there are these goods in the middle that are both intrinsic, good in and of themselves, and also instrumental, meaning that they produce more good. Socrates believed that goodness and justice was both intrinsic and instrumental. It was good in and of itself, and it produced good things. However, Glaucon concluded that justice is only instrumental. It is pursued by selfish human beings to attain another good. Say, you give a lot of money to the university under the stipulation that you're immortalized by your name going on a building for centuries. Glaucon argued that no one is intrinsically just or good. Humans, being selfish, will do what is right either because they are forced to by the law or because they can use whatever they do good in order to gain a greater good. Like I said earlier, such as gaining the reputation of being a good person. And then he goes on to lead this thought experiment. He talks about this ancient myth, the Ring of Gyges. It reportedly was a ring that was found by a shepherd, and the shepherd put it on his finger and noticed that it had an amazing miraculous effect. It could make him invisible. And Glaucon poses this question. He said, what if you had the Ring of Gyges? What if you had the ability to become invisible to your fellow human beings? What would you do? Would you use it to kill your enemies? Would you use it to help your like-minded friends? Would you use it to become a master thief? And then he began to unfold this argument and said, look, the majority of people, they would likewise use that for those unjust purposes, because that's what people are at their core. Adeimantus, he joins in the argument, and he furthers Glaucon's cause. He says, look, people are generally good simply because they're trying to avoid punishment or they want to be known as good people. Now the church, just like the ancient philosophers, have wrestled with the question of human goodness and evil for centuries. The Western Church, under the leadership of St. Augustine, would come to a similar conclusion. He would talk about the doctrine of original sin, and he would conclude that the original sin is basically the confusion between what it means to be a creator and what it means to be a creature. He roots it in a form of universal human rebelliousness. In short, he agrees with Glaucon and Adeimantus that human beings are selfish and are prone to do good only to gain a greater good or to escape punishment. So, what do you think? Are human beings innately good or evil? Why do we do good things and act justly? And most importantly, if you had the Ring of Gyges, a magical talisman or ring that could turn you invisible, what would you do? Thank you.